2020 has both felt like the longest and the shortest year ever. It really feels like, January and February, like, being able to go out and like do things without really a worry in your mind was just a moment ago. It feels like it was just here, and then now it's about at the same time. It's like I think back to when like Zero released, and it's like, oh, that was quite a while ago, huh? Like we've already been going with this game for well over a year, but even though it's well over a year for the JP server, for global, it's still a few months before you reach that 1 year mark, and there's still a few more sets to take a look at. So of course, that's what we're going to be doing today. It's going to be the set review for set 11. So this is the set where Dauntless Drive came out and a bunch of other great support for like Genesis, Kagero, Narukami, etc. So we're going to take a look at everything together. Of course, don't forget, I will be doing my really the biggest so far and possibly ever pack opening for set 14 on my Twitch channel, so twitch.tv/DifferentFight. I'll be opening 400 packs plus for Daikaiser because I want to be able to craft 4 SPs of my boy, because that is, literally my favorite card of all time. And even the future forms of Daikaiser that come out, I'm not as big of a fan of as the original form. And, those of you that watched my video on why I main DP, you guys know why. So, join us at, I think, 9 AM CET is what I'm kind of aiming on January 1st. We'll greet the new year together and open some packs. So, come through and enjoy the show. I guess that's going to be actually around midnight for the West Coast people, so that'll be pretty interesting. You guys can greet the new year together with us. But on that note though, let's get into the video and take a look at the new cards. Alright, so let's start with the Genesis support. So I'm going to try to do my best to remember what exactly came out. I believe this starter, this was the Cinnamon that came out. This is actually a really good starter for Tuna especially. So her skill is, when she boosts a grade 3 or higher unit and the attack hits a Vanguard, you can put her into the soul to then soul charge 2 cards until you reach 2 cards that are not triggers, and then any triggers that you soul charge by this effect go back to your deck. So this is a really cool effect because basically you get to soul charge 2, but no matter what, you will not soul charge triggers, and that is a great thing because a lot of cards in this in this support that came out for Genesis actually do that. So here we also see the Valencia. So she also says in the soul, when she is put into the drop zone from the soul, you can soul charge, and you soul charge until you soul charge 2 non-trigger cards. Any triggers soul charged by this effect go back to the deck. So this is a really cool effect because this makes it so that you can turbo soul charge really quickly in the clan now without actually worrying about like going through all your triggers. And you can basically like soul blast 3 of these, soul charge 6, and you'll know that those are just going to be normal units and your triggers are going to be ready to be checked. So that's a really nice way to support the clan in my opinion. I think that it definitely helped a fair bit too. So then looking at other grade 2s we got, this is the Clever Jake. So he is on attack almost 1 plus 4k. Nothing too special there. This is if you have more rearguards than your opponent, gain 3k. Not that great, but this is pretty good. This is the Grappa. So same effect as before, when put into the drop zone from the soul charge until you soul charge 2 non-trigger units, and then all the triggers go back to the deck. So again, you just play all these, like the Grappa and the Valencia, to basically just put them out of the soul charge a bunch of non-triggers, and then you're able to like soul charge stuff like Chamomile and the grade 1 as well, the Melissa, and therefore you have better combo ability as well. So that's also a very nice addition to the deck. And then if looking at the grade 3s, we have the card that basically says when you put a grade 3 Vanguard down, he gets plus 10k. Also, you'll see me looking down because I have to look at my phone for this now because shift is dead, bro. Shift is dead. So new rare, when you attack Calmas 2 to gain 5k. Definitely not played. That is a big skip. There is a new break ride, however, which is the Metis. So Metis is a break ride. When you break ride over her, Calmas 1. For that turn, your Vanguard gains plus 10k. You can draw 1 and you soul charge 3. This is really nice because the old break ride didn't let you draw extra cards. So this lets you basically run a build that doesn't run draws at all. So you don't actually risk decking out because this deck risks decking out on its own already. And you get to hit the 10 soul requirement pretty easily for some cards like the, well, not 10, but 9 soul requirement for cards like Yatagarasu. So that break ride is actually pretty damn good on its own. Then we have Yatagarasu. So Yatagarasu is one of the 2 new triple rare grade 3s that Genesis got. Her skill is Limb Break. When she attacks the Vanguard, Soul Blast 9. That's very hefty. To draw 2 and then choose 2 rear guards and stand them. And she also gets crit plus 2. So it's Soul Blast 9. that's a big cost, but she does a lot for you. Like, she draws you cards, she restands your rear guards that like have like, you know, trigger powers applied to them and whatnot, and on top of that she gets extra crits, so she's gonna get PG'd and your standing rear guards can swing again and try to deliver the game or just push them even harder. On top of that, she has 2 more good skills. She also says Soul Blast 1, Persona Blast, Soul Charge 3, so if you're missing that 9 soul, that's a great way to turbo yourself into it. And finally, the skill that really made her unique in the TCG and they had to change for 0 is during your opponent's turn, when your rear guard that intercepted would go to the drop zone, or when a sentinel that you would guard with would go to the drop zone, instead of going to the drop zone, they go to your soul. So your intercepts go into your soul, your PGs go into your soul, and that is really, really cool, because that basically means you can put down Camomiles as intercepts, and you will basically they will go to the soul. This also isn't just for intercepts, by the way, this is any rear guard. So if, for example, you're playing against like Kagero and they nuke your board, you can actually just like put them into the soul instead, and that is also really, really cool. So that is honestly really, really nice that she just provides that soul without actually doing anything, but just playing the game regularly. Of course, the poster child of the set for Genesis though is the Fortuna. Fortuna is a very unique card and basically the main sort of pushing power for Genesis for quite some time. Her skill is like 4 Vanguard Circle. When you check a non-trigger unit from your drive check, you may Soul Blast 3. You put that non-trigger unit into your hand and you gain 1 more drive check. This is not once per turn, so you can basically go like, check grade 2, alright, Soul Blast 3, add it to hand, check again. Oh, check a grade 2 again, alright, Soul Blast 3, check again. It's like, then, drive check, Perfect Guard, oh, okay, Soul Blast 3, I'll add that Perfect Guard to my hand, check again, oh, trigger, that's it, GG, you know? And then, once you give them that trigger treatment, you get her second skill, which says, if, when you drive check a trigger, if it's the second or more trigger of that turn, you gain another drive check. So you get a lot of drive checks, but keep in mind, because you're adding them to your hand, if they're normal units and triggers, you know, they go to your drop zone, keep in mind that you are going to deck out much easier. But, you know, if you play like a pure like crit variant or pure stand variant, you can actually go super aggressive with this deck and just finish games faster and just be super greedy with your plays, because you get so many cards back into your hand by just using the Fortunas. That's also really nice. She also lets you Soul Blast 3 to gain 5k, but I'm not sure why you would do that when you can bank on another trigger instead. So Genesis, while it didn't get a crazy amount of support this set, it got support that finally made it really viable, and Genesis was really popular at the time of its release in this set, so definitely was seen a lot. That's all I can really tell you. It was seen a lot. Alright, and now basically the poster child of the set, I would say. I think it's really like Kagero and Aqua Force that got the most amount of cards in this set. Of course, Kagero probably takes the biggest card count for the set though. So we have 3 new starters. This one says when it boosts a Limb Break 4 unit, at the end of the battle put into your soul and draw 1, so our generic starter. Then this one says put into the soul to draw 1, discard 1. Again, pretty generic, but the more unique one is the Terry Cloth, which says if your Vanguard is a Steel Dragon, can almost 1 put this unit into your soul. Your opponent, you choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. Then your opponent looks at the top 4 cards of their deck, it randomly chooses a grade 2 from among them and calls it to that rear guard circle that you retired something from. If they don't, any on-place abilities that are procced from calling do not activate. So if it says like, you know, like a Blaster Blade or something, it does not activate. So that's pretty nice. Of course, if they don't find a grade 2 from those top 4, they don't call anything, so then you retire it successfully. But this card is nice. This is the entire like Steel Dragon archetype is basically popping stuff and calling grade 2s instead. But if it's stuff in the back row, such as, you know, like a starter, then you can just clog up that back row, and that's pretty damn nice. And also, of course, you do retire those grade 2s eventually too, so that's pretty cool. Moving on though, let's see, we have when it boosts Limb Break 4 unit, gain 3k, pretty generic. This is the blockade booster, so when it boosts a blockade, you can Soul Blast 1, it gains 4k, so it's a 10k booster, which is not really used, but appreciated. Self-damager for Kagero, finally. I think for a lot of people that's a finally. Then we have the, during your turn, if your opponent has a grade 2 unit, gain 3k, so it's a 9k attacker when your opponent has grade 2s, which is interesting. But then we have the all reliable Steel Dragon 10k attacker in the front row, which is also nice. And then we have the Karaze, which is used quite a lot actually. It's on place if your opponent has a grade 2 unit, discard 1 and draw 1. So pretty good for filtering. You know, Kagero does that really well. They have Gojo, they have Ermo, and now they have this card as well, which is also used. And finally, we have the Steel Dragon Perfect Guard, which works you know, as the new perfect card. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Looking at the grade 2s, we have more, you know, generic stuff. During your turn, if you have a Limerick 4 unit, gain 3k, so 11k attacker. Then this guy is a grade 2 self-damager. So again, all the self-damagers you need are here. This guy says, if your Vanguard is a Seal Dragon, Counterblast 2, for that turn, all of your opponent's units lose intercept. So you can basically force the ignore intercept even if you're not sitting on the original blockade. Then Seal Dragon 10k vanilla, which is also played. Seal Dragon 12k attacker. So, you know, these are very generic cards. I'm just kind of glossing over them because there's not too much to talk about. But then we have a very unique card for Seal Dragons that is also used in non-Seal Dragon builds as well, which is the Corduroy. So Corduroy says, Rearguard Circle when placed, if your Vanguard is a Seal Dragon, so it can even be like a Seal Dragon grade 2, it doesn't have to be a grade 3, Counterblast 1, choose an opponent's rearguard and retire it. Your opponent looks at the top 4 cards of their deck, randomly calls a grade 2 from among them, and calls it to that rearguard circle that the retired unit was on. If they any on-call abilities do not activate. So this card is used purely for the fact that it's a grade 2 and it's a Seal Dragon, and the fact that you can pop your opponent's starters. That's the kind of best thing about this card, is that before they get to use like a Conroe, or before they get to use like whatever other annoying starter they might have, you basically get to pop it, and there you go. They have a grade 2 sitting in the back row. Are they going to really call over that? Are they going to -1 just for that? Not sure about that. So it's a nice little card that puts your opponent in a little bit of a sticky situation, and I think that's what people mostly appreciate about it. So then looking at grade 3s, we have the Vanguard Circle Limerick 4, when attacks Vanguard gets 5k. On Rearguard, when attacks Vanguard gains 2k, so pretty generic. Then here, when boosted, gain 3k, also generic, but I think it's a Seal Dragon if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it is. And then we have the Vorpal Cannon Dragon. So this was like a pretty generic card back then. On attack, when it attacks the Vanguard, Limerick 4 gets 5k. And then Vanguard Circle when placed, Counterblast 2, retire an opponent's grade 2 or lower rearguard. So it's, I guess, a budget card. It was handed out like with like a starter, not even a starter deck, but like a here you can start Vanguard with this kind of promo in Japan, and I don't think it even made it to English, to be honest, way back then. Then we have the Chain Blast Dragon. This card is also not Seal Dragon, but you know, just a random double rare that they threw in. Limerick 4, Counterblast 1, and you can discard 2 or more grade 3s from your hand, and then you choose 3 of your opponent's rearguards and retire them. So it's a big pop for, you know, getting rid of some grade 3s and a Counterblast 1, which isn't too bad. And then the second skill is, when his attack hits a Vanguard, you can retire one of your own rearguards, and then look at the top 5 cards of your deck and add a grade 3 from among them to your hand. So basically to fuel his Limit Break. So you can make a gimmick deck out of this, but it's definitely not anything competitive. But now, getting to the competitive cards though, we have Dauntless Drive Dragon. You know, this is the break ride for all of Kagero. Like, everyone knows Dauntless. Like, it's a very famous card, very cool art as well. You know, he's just standing there menacingly with his arms crossed. So Dauntless Drive is a break ride. So when you break ride over him, your Vanguard gains plus 10k power in the following ability. Vanguard Circle once per turn. At the end of the battle that it attacked, Counterblast 1 and discard 3. And then once you do, this unit stands and you draw 2. So that Counterblast was actually not there before, so that Counterblast got added. So now if you want to do, like, you know, the end and Dauntless, that's Counterblast 3 instead of just 2, but it's still very strong. Like, even with that, you guys have seen the tier list, Dauntless and the End are still, you know, a match made in heaven and just an amazing combo, but they gave it a little bit of a nerf, and as you'll see in the future, since after set 11, they've been giving a lot of the meta decks that were like the best decks during that time in like 2013, 2014, they've been getting nerfed pretty hard to let the other decks shine. So it's an interesting move on Game Studio's part. Some players love it, some players don't like it, especially if they were looking forward to those decks. So yeah, but anyway, the other skill is, during your turn, if you have more rearguards than your opponent, gain 3k. But Dauntless' skill, of course, you know, it's a match made in heaven with our boy The End. So if you've been sitting on your The Ends for a long time, this is where you want to put them to work. And then the other grade 3, which of course, you know, this whole set is Seal Dragon based, is Seal Dragon Blockade Inferno. So his skill is Limerick 4, if you have 2 or more Seal Dragons in your soul, Counterblast 2, and for that turn gain 10k. And then you choose all of your opponents, you don't choose, you just retire all of your opponent's grade 2 or higher rearguards. If you retire 3 or more, draw 1, and he's a cross ride with the original Blockade, so the one that's way back here, so this one. So this effect, of course, is really cool. They added that soul requirement as well, which makes it a bit harder to splash. So now if you want to play with Dauntless, for example, which I did a video on that, you basically have to make sure you ride grade 1 Seal Dragon and grade 2 Seal Dragon, then go into Dauntless, then go into this, and you can have, you know, a deck that retires the front row, and it can attack rearguard, rearguard, vanguard, vanguard. So 4 swings, and the blockade is 31 minimum, so that is also something to keep in mind. So it's definitely a very strong deck. On top of that, if you don't want to run that, you have the Steel Dragon Break Ride as well, which is the Weather Cloth that came out in Fighters Collection 2014. So we were still going through Fighters Collection 2013 cards in some of these recent releases, and now we have 2014 as well. So that goes to show that maybe we'll get like quite a few interesting other cards thrown into this set too. Anyway, his skill is Limerick 4. When you break right over him, for that turn your Vanguard gains plus 10k, and you choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards and retire them, and your opponent has to look at the top 4 cards of their deck and randomly choose 2 grade 2s from that top 4 and call them to the same rearguard circles. Any on-call abilities do not take place. So of course, they basically, you know, if they don't find any grade 2s from those, they don't call them. And then I think the call order is that if they only find one, they have to call to the one that you retired first. So yeah, it's a pretty good break ride. He also has the same condition as Dauntless for the plus 3k gain. And so it is like, you know, pure Steel Dragons are pretty good, but I feel like Steel Dragons shone even brighter when it was combined with Dauntless. I think that deck in particular was really, really good. And of course, it's going to get even better with Nouvelle Vague coming up in a few more sets. So there's that coming up too. So that's Kagero. That was a pretty big, chunky part to talk about. So now we can move on to our next one, which is Narukami. Narukami got a little bit of support, not too much, mostly in the form of the infamous Steve. So if you don't know the Steve lore, I've told this on the channel so many times. Sweep Command Dragon, when it was first revealed, was read as Siev Command Dragon. And people saw Siev and they were like, huh, that sounds like Steve. And that's why we call Sweep Command Steve, basically. So Steve has a starter, which is the first Thunder Draco Kid. So he says, when your opponent's card is retired by your card's ability, if your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater Eradicator, you can put this unit to your soul and then look at the top 10 cards of your deck and look for a Sweep Command Dragon and ride it, and then for that turn it gets plus 5k. If you wrote it during the battle phase, which you can do, then you also draw 2 cards. So Sweep it's already playable with this combo, with this starter already from this first set, but it actually only gets better in G, because in G you get a lot more of battle phase retire, which makes the deck and the whole gimmick even better, which is, you know, it's something to appreciate, let's put it that way. Alright, I think in terms of grade 1s we didn't get anything. Oh, we got these, I think. So this is Vanguard Circle and Front Row Rearguard Circle during your turn. If you have more rearguards than your opponent, gain 3k. This might have been... Something tells me that this was during the Vowing Reverse support, so I'm gonna skip on these cards and pray that they're not from this set, but I don't think they are. Man, Narukami's card pool is huge, it's humongous. Alright, then we have on attack combos 1 gain 4k, nothing too fantastic, but this card is used in Sweep Command. He says Vanguard Circle, Rearguard Circle, when his attack hits a Vanguard, combos 2, and retire one of your opponent's rearguards. So this is Battle Phase Retire, that if you hit the Vanguard, you combos 2, pop something, the starter searches out Sweep Command, bam, you get to draw 2 and get another Vanguard attack. Very cool. Then we have grade 3s that kind of work with this as well. So we have the Sparkhorn Dragon. So Limit Break 4 gains 5k when he attacks the Vanguard on Vanguard Circle, and when his attack hits a Vanguard, combos 1 and retire a random rearguard of your opponents that is prioritizing the back row. So by combosting 1, you get a retire. There you go. Sweep Command starter goes in, and you get a Sweep Command if you find it. What does Sweep Command himself do though? So of course the starter lets you draw 2 when you ride him, but he also says that when you ride him, you can put one of your Eradicator rearguards into your soul to retire another one of your opponent's rearguards. So you get to retire something mid-battle phase as well, which is really cool. And then his Limit Break says, when your opponent's rearguard is retired by your card's ability, you may Soul Blast 2 and Counter Blast 2 to draw 1, choose an opponent's rearguard, retire it, and then for that turn he gains 5k. So you can chain a bunch of retires off of just riding him. So you ride him, put a rearguard into soul, pop something. Limit Break 4 comes in, you Soul Blast 2, draw 2, Soul Blast 2, Counter Blast 2, draw 1, retire 1, and then Limit Break 4 pops again, so you can actually go through 4 Counter Blast and 4 Soul Blast just for that. But of course it is pretty expensive in terms of resources. But that's actually it for the Narukami support, but it was still pretty cool in its own right, I would say. I think it was definitely, you know, it was fun to mess around with Sweep Command. I actually had a lot of fun with that deck when it had just come out. Alright, now finally the next chonky clan that got some support in this set is Aqua Force, and I think I need to hydrate real quick because my mouth is gonna dry up even more so before I start talking about this. Alright, so let's look at all the new starters because there is a lot. First things first, we have the generic ones to go through. This one is put it into your soul, give another unit plus 3k. Alright. When the boost Limit Break 4 unit at the end of that battle, put it into soul and draw 1 card. Alright. Then put this into your soul, draw 1, discard 1. Alright. And now we get to the actual, the ones that got a bit of play. Oh, actually, these ones, the Limit Break 4 boosting ones, actually see some play sometimes. Then this one is the Brave Shooter. When he boosts, if you have another, at least one or less other resting rear guards, he gains plus 3k. So basically you have to boost him on after the first battle, I guess, which makes him a little bit iffy in 0 and made him a lot better in the TCG. But because of having to attack into, you know, the rear guards, this makes it worse. But we have a new ride chain in this set, which is Ripples. Ripples, you know, if you've never played the TCG, probably sounds like, oh, what a nice name. You know, they're called Hamon. I love Hamon. I love JoJo Battle Tendency. You know, that's the part 2 is the best. But if you've played Vanguard for a long time, Ripples become a bit of a PTSD attachment. So when you ride Soterio, which is the grade 1 over him, you can look at the top 7 cards of your deck, find either a Genovius, ooh, or a Pavroth, ooh, and add it to your hand. If you did not, you call this card out onto a rearguard circle. And then his other skill is, when he's ridden by a grade 1 that is non-Soterio, you also call him out. So 2 reasons to get a unit on the board. So it's, you know, the usual ride chain starter. So who is Soterio? Soterio is the Ripple grade 1. If you have the Alex, the starter, in the soul, he gains plus 1k. And then when you ride a grade 2 that is not Pavroth on him, you can look at the top 7 cards of your deck to find a Pavroth. So that is also pretty cool. Then we have a 10k attacker that has an interesting condition. During your turn, if you have 1 or less other resting rear guards, he gains plus 3k. So he's a very, very conditional 10k attacker, let's put it that way. Then you can rest this guy to give another unit plus 2k, sorry, for that turn. Kind of useful, could be useful sometimes. Then, moving forward, we also have, when it boosts Limit Break 4 unit, gain 3k. So, grade 1-wise, nothing too much, just a few new cards actually, but overall, it's definitely not a crazy amount. Also, new PG, of course, you know, a new Pascal that put in some work too. But now we move on to the grade 2s, which you will notice are, for whatever reason, very bling on my side. So this is, if you have a Liberating 4 unit, gains 3k. This did see some play at some point. For some reason, I remember him seeing play at some point, randomly. During your turn, if you have more Regas than your opponent, gain 3k. And then this is the Carista, her skill. This is like a new type of, like, theme of units for Aqua Force. When her attack hits the Vanguard, if it was the 4th or more battle of that turn, Catalmast 1, choose another rear guard, stand it, and it gets plus 5k. So, kind of like Algos, but instead of drawing, it stands. And then again, her other similar to Algos skill is, when she attacks and it's the 4th or more battle of that turn, Catalmast 1, she gains 5k to get over defensives, basically, which is nice, I guess. 12k attacker with the same condition during this turn, if you have 1 or less resting rear guards, gains plus 3k. So again, have to attack with him pretty early to get that effect. Then this is a Maiden of Libra for Aqua Force, so when attack hits anything, Catalmast 2, draw a card, so pretty useful actually, in especially the build that don't Catalmast as much. Here's Pavroth, which is the grade 2 for the Ripple Ride Chain. If you have the Soterio in the Soul, gain 1k, so 10k base. And then Vanguard Circle, this is the part that will bring PTSD for people. When his attack hits a Vanguard, for that turn, you choose a rear guard, give it 3k. If you have Soterio in your Soul, you can stand that unit, so if you hit the right chain correctly, then you can restand him, which is pretty nice. So you get a bit of attack. Well, it was attack on hit pressure in the TCG, whereas in here, just like, oh, you can stand something and attack again. So yeah, it's a good right chain, especially, you know, in the grade 2 department. Very, very good. But now let's take a look at the grade 3s and see what the clan is shaped up to be in the modern Break Ride era. Saying modern Break Ride era definitely does not sit too well because it's been 6 years. Anyway, we have the 5k on Vanguard Circle, 2k on Rearguard Circle when it attacks Vanguard, and then this is the when his attack hits a Vanguard for that turn, give another unit plus 3k. Pretty generic. Then we have 12k attacker, which is cool. And then, ooh, for whatever reason, I have 4 SPs of Revon. So Revon, everyone expected it to be a triple rare because it was like the key card for Aqua Force back in this set, but they demoted him to a double rare because I guess his effect wasn't good enough. So Limit Break 4, when he attacks the Vanguard, if you have all 3 resting units in your front row, Catalmast 1, and he gains plus 3k and a crit. It's not much, but it's still a crit gain, which makes the deck still pretty cool, you know. I think it's still a pretty nice effect, and, you know, that definitely helps to push out games and push out PGs especially. But I guess, yeah, it's just not that strong, I guess, when you think about it. His other skill is Catalmast 1 to gain 2k, so it's like, not that great. The right chain also finishes with Genovius for now at least. So Genovius is the grade 3 Ripple. So his limit break says when he attacks the Vanguard, gains 5k and the following ability. At the end of that battle, Counterblast 2 and Persona Blast, and then stand all of your rear guards. So this is really cool because you basically get to restand your entire board, but because it doesn't distribute any power, that's like, at first we saw this and we were like, damn, that's gonna be really good in 0, but if your opponent's at like 21 and your rear guards are all 19, it's just like, well, I don't even want to use this Persona Blast. So in the later turns where your opponent's at like 4, if they didn't check a defensive, this is really big, but even then they check a defensive, even if they're on 4, and it kind of, you know, it's not that great. Otherwise, if they're on 5, of course it is going to be pretty damn lethal. His other skill is, when his attack hits a Vanguard, if you have all 3 resting units in your front row, you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck and find a Ripple from among them and add it to your hand. So it can be another copy of Genovius for the Persona Blast, or it can be a grade 2 for the Intercept or a grade 1. And then if he has Pavaroth in the Soul, which is the grade 2 of the right chain, he is 11k base, so he is, you know, he is a right chain. Then finally the Break Ride, Transcore Dragon. This one is pretty big for Aqua Force, definitely feels like it carried the clan a fair bit. So his skill is, when you Break Ride, for that turn your Vanguard gains plus 10k power, and the following ability. When it attacks the Vanguard, your opponent has to randomly discard a card from their hand that is not a Sentinel. If they were not able to discard, this card gains +1 crit, and your opponent cannot Sentinel. So if your opponent's hand is all Sentinels, they are screwed, basically. They lose on the spot. But if it's not, and you use something like Glory, that would normally ask for a grade 3 and a Sentinel, and you just boop, kill that grade 3 in their hand, they can't Sentinel anymore against the Glory, but, you know, they can discard against the Transcore. So it's a really cool effect. This also, of course, when Tetra Drive comes out, which in JP is literally in a few days, or in a day or 2, depending on when I'm uploading this, this is even better, purely for the fact that it's a Vanguard that attacks twice, so you get to rip out 2 cards out of their hand, you know, because it is attacking 2 times in 1 turn. So that's also really, really cool, and, you know, definitely helps the deck to have some good gas, because, you know, it's just nice to be able to rip out 2 cards out of the opponent's hand while also, you know, going through your own deck. So this Breakout is really good. Also, he has when he attacks Vanguard, gain 3k as the condition for 3k. So that's actually it for all the new Aqua Force cards as well. And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there is no other clan that was supported in this set either. So yeah, that basically wraps it up for this set analysis of set 11 in Vanguard 0 Global. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. You know, I tried to cover everything and give you guys some insights as well on, you know, like I've already covered all these decks and, you know, like tier list and everything for this set on the channel, but, you know, just a quick overview as we usually do and go over all the cards. So hopefully you guys enjoy this set. Whether it's skippable or not, my kind of conclusion is that it is not if you want to play Kagero. For Aqua Force, I think the must pickups, let's go over the must pickups for Aqua Force. I think Transcore is definitely a must. Everything else here can be skipped. And for grade 2s, also kind of skippable. For grade 1s, just PGs really, and maybe the 10k and 12k attackers. Then for Genesis, I think you definitely need the Valencia as well as the Grappa. These will come back a lot in the future. You really, really need them. For the other grade 3s, they're kind of more like cores of their deck, so like Minerva won't necessarily use them, but she might. So we don't really know that, so I can't tell you for sure, so you might want to be on the safe side and kind of work towards them, because they're fun decks too. For Kagero, I mean, it goes without saying, you know, this one is pretty damn obvious. Steel Dragon support. Steel Dragons do get support in the future, but it's not super hot. If you have to pick up something from this set, make sure that it is the Dauntless. Like, Dauntless Drive might be a rank reward because there is an alternate art for it that should be coming up eventually, but Dauntless Drive will be coming back over and over again, and, you know, it's just one of the best break cards in general. And like, if you like Steel Dragons, definitely pick them up. If you don't, then the future support won't really phase you too much. So I think for that reason it is skippable, but Dauntless Drive definitely makes this very, very hard to skip. For Narukami, sadly everything is skippable. Sweep Command is a cool deck, and it will get support in the future too, not directly, but just through Narukami as a whole. But it definitely isn't, you know, the most meta. And like, you maybe need like 1 Sweep Command for your Eradicator deck right now, but that's like the most of it, because you can still retire front rows while having no counterblast, which is just by writing the sweep command. So that's about it, I would say. So that's kind of like your must-haves for this set too. So gotta make sure not to forget rather to do that. But on that note though, that's gonna be it for me today. Don't forget to tune in to my very big pack opening of set 14, which we'll be doing on January 1st at 9 AM CET. So you're gonna watch me go crazy for Daikaiser SPs over there, and hopefully pull everything else for the other clans, including Aqua Force that's getting support too. So on that note though, that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.